Welcome to Access Open Minds.
I think part of the mental health system for youth is that there's always been adults who have studied in a very academic environment, who've gone through years of schooling to get PhDs and different degrees to help youth, which I think is great, and I think that's really needed in society. But a very large component that's missing is youth and the youth voice, and to be heard and what youth needs, because society is constantly changing, our culture is constantly changing, our views are constantly changing, and having a youth voice and youth perspective, I think could create really great change for the future.
I was very interested in making sure that the prospective candidate would have the appropriate skills and communicate with the family if the family accompanies the youth, and reach out to the young person and the family, and as much as possible keep in touch.
When we say, well, we're going to really have the youth speak their voice and that it be incorporated into this project, there can't be a better way of doing it than at the very sort of basics of it, which is who are the people who are going to work on this project, because you can teach people skills. You cannot teach people attitudes that easily.
In order to keep with the theme of involvement of the 5 stakeholder groups, we just automatically included youth in the interview process because it makes sense. We were hiring an Access Youth clinician and an Access Youth research assistant. So because we all come at everything with our own personal and professional experiences, we just followed through with it because it just made natural sense.
What was beautiful about it was that this was a mechanism that was proposed by youth. It was met with a lot of enthusiasm, even though for many people who were part of the executive community when this was brought up, this was new. And this was also bringing home the idea that when we signed up for this project, we weren't signing up for doing the same thing again. It was supposed to be transformative, and this was one way that we were going to make it transformative. And the culture of care that we create is really about the people who are at Access sites, the people who are at Access Central. Cultures created in everyday interactions between the people who work and are part of Access teams. And so the people we are hiring are very important because they're going to become part and influence and build and change that culture and become Access in some ways. And if they are going to become Access in some ways, we need to make sure that those who are already part of Access, everyone, youth and families included, and perhaps primarily also have a voice in who becomes and who gets to shape what the future of Access becomes. So, which is why hiring may seem like a very concrete decision, but it is an important decision where we needed to make sure that all stakeholders had a voice.
Having young people on the hiring committee was an important decision for me to be a part of, because I've seen so many services struggle to understand what young people need in service providers. They sometimes hire people that the young adults just don't connect with or resonate with. And I thought it would be really cool for the young people to be able to take a seat on the hiring committees and throughout those processes to be there to show them what kind of service providers they're looking for and what kind of knowledges they want their service providers to have. And I think in doing so, we've created a situation where the young adults and many people at sites feel a little bit more connected and have a better understanding of what young adults are looking for in their therapists, but also from researchers and from other staff that are helping out with each of the sites.
C'est une chose de dire je crois en ce projet que de dire je suis ce projet. Hein? I'm in, you know, I am Access and not I believe in it, you know. Puis le fait d'être dans le projet nous invite à prendre une posture complètement différente, hein, que de dire je crois en ce projet. Ça reste il peut rester abstrait, il peut rester virtuel, mais de dire je suis Access, c'est voilà. Hein, voilà, que penses-tu de ce qu'on est en train de faire ensemble? Et c'est d'aller vérifier ça. Et c'est formidable parce que si on veut que les jeunes si on veut parler de la santé mentale et de la déstigmatiser, de faire en sorte qu'on en parle ouvertement, ben, il faut démontrer aux jeunes, il faut montrer que les valeurs, ben, on les a à l'intérieur. C'est pas juste un habit qu'on revêt comme ça, mais on les véhicule. Hein,
They're looking at the person that's going to be hired from a different angle, from a different lens. So they're looking for somebody who can relate to perhaps to the illness, perhaps to the person, to the family member. So they're looking for different qualities than maybe somebody in HR would, or what a manager would be looking for.
As a network, you know, we have to do things differently if we really want to make transformational change. And so that's why the motion was put forward, have these youth involved in every step of the way, not just at the hiring level, but in general within the project. And one of the reasons why we have a National Youth Project is to help drive this project forward.
And without that voice, you will always be making decisions, even if they are well-intentioned. These decisions will not really be they'll not be appropriate, they'll not be inclusive, they just cannot be appropriate because you're not taking the voice of the people who really have the experience that can shape this decision.
I also do commend the Youth Council for being fairly insistent that it not be an optional thing, because sometimes rules are what's needed to break other rules. What was particularly interesting for me was the opportunity to see if we would end up with different results if we did try this. Maybe we would end up in the same thing. Maybe everybody's fears would come true. I don't know. I mean, I think that's one of the strengths of Access, that it's sort of a petri dish for trying all kinds of new ideas, research or not. So,
mais ça m'a comme rassurée, ça m'a donné comme des checks, comme des affirmations, comme pour moi, de dire ah oui, je veux être, oui c'est vrai, ça fait du sens, pas juste pour des gens qui vont embaucher, mais aussi comme pour des jeunes du contexte.
I think that family members can make a contribution to the hiring process in clinics because they have expertise in lived experience, they have the family point of view, experience some difficulties, and those difficulties perhaps could be addressed in the hiring process. Who to hire, who is appropriate, maybe even the job description.
Projet Access, c'est vraiment une opportunité pour nous d'améliorer nos services, de transformer la façon qu'on pense les services en santé mentale pour les jeunes et de pouvoir contribuer à améliorer la qualité de vie aussi des personnes, autant des jeunes que de leurs familles qui les accompagnent et qui vivent toute une expérience à travers ce chemin.
You would be getting candidates that might have a more varied background and maybe a different skill set or an added skill set that maybe HR practices would not have looked for. So I think that's definitely a win-win situation. But this is maybe something that's been unexplored in other healthcare fields, and I think that maybe mental health care could be a leader in this. I think if we're able to, in psychiatry, where or even community mental health care, where we're working with people on such a personal level, we could maybe inspire other fields to reach out to patients and family members and get them included as well and be a role model for other fields, because we have that advantage because we're always looking at just that human connection, which might be slightly different. So,
doing so and learning to work with each other, that's when you really are working in a multi-stakeholder team. It isn't so much like each person working on different projects together. And sometimes you need these concrete opportunities to work together and learn how to dialogue and collaborate.
So, if you want the best candidate, involve your stakeholders.
It comes back to change that we're trying to make. Transformational change that has to come from the youth. That's ultimately what needs to be done, and so in order to achieve that goal, youth have to be involved in the process to make authentic change.
Contact us at Access Open Minds if you'd like to explore how to include youth, family, and carers on the HR panels of your organization.